adventurers, and welcome back to Behind the Screen, your cozy guide to the delightful chaos that is dungeon mastering. I'm Sophia, also known as the Clever Kobold, and today we're talking about the most magical, maddening, and memorable parts of DMing, creating NPCs your players will never forget. NPCs, or non-player characters, are the lifeblood of any campaign. They're the shopkeepers, quest givers, rivals, and mysterious strangers that bring your world to life. Sometimes they're the star of the show, and other times, well, they're just there for decoration. But if there's one thing I've learned as a DM, it's this. Your players will ignore the elaborate backstory you crafted for the dashing noble, and instead fall in love with the nameless shopkeeper, or worse, a literal rock. And yes, we'll get to that rock. Let's dive in. Every NPC needs a hook, something that grabs players' attention and makes them stand out, even if they're only on screen for a fleeting 5 minutes. A strong hook is the secret sauce that transforms an otherwise forgettable shopkeeper or quest giver into a character your players will talk about long after the campaign is over. Take Titt the Kobold Bard, for example. His hook was simple, but highly effective. He's a bard, but he's terrible at it. Truly, deeply awful. He can't sing to save his life. His rhythm is questionable at best, and his instrument of choice, percussion, which in Titt's world means banging on whatever in within arm's reach. Barrels, tables, even his trusty shovel. But here's the thing. Titt doesn't let his lack of talent hold him back. He's passionate, he's persistent, and his sheer enthusiasm is infectious. His unwavering belief in his abilities makes him more than just comic relief. It makes him endearing. That's the magic of a good hook. It gives your NPC a reason to exist in your players' memories, even if they're objectively bad at what they do. And then there's Titt's unexpected second passion, grave digging. Spoiler alert, it's not much better at that either. Every attempt at digging a grave ends in disaster, whether it's collapsing dirt, misplaced holes, or digging in entirely the wrong spot. But failure doesn't stop Titt. It led him to accidentally discover his true calling, gardening. Somehow, this disastrous gravedigger became an extraordinary gardener, turning any patch of dirt into a lush paradise. With this kind of layered hook is what makes NPCs shine. It starts with one unique detail, the terrible bard, then grows into something richer, like Titt's unlikely success with plants. Players latch on to these quirks because they're unexpected, entertaining, and most importantly, memorable. The key is to think of one quirky, unexpected detail that will grab your player's attention. It doesn't have to be overly complex or tied to an elaborate backstory. It could be as simple as a blacksmith who's afraid of fire, a wizard who's terrified of pigeons, or a merchant who refuses to haggle unless you can beat him at a game of chess. Hooks like these make your NPCs fun to interact with. They spark curiosity, encourage roleplay, and give your players a reason to care about a character beyond their mechanical purpose in the story. And the best part? Hooks don't just define the NPC. They create unforgettable moments. Let's imagine for a moment. Your players meet a tavern owner who always speaks in rhymes. They might spend extra time at the tavern just to challenge the NPC to a rhyming duel. Or a stable hand who talks to horses as if their royalty might inspire the players to take an otherwise ordinary horse on their adventure. Hooks turn NPCs into opportunities for storytelling, laughter, and connection. And from a player's point of view, to get the DM to do more funny voices. So, when you're crafting your next NPC, think about what sets them apart. What's the one detail that will make your players sit up and say, wait, tell me more about this guy? Because those are the NPCs that linger in the hearts of your players long after the dice have stopped rolling. Here's a universal truth every DM eventually learns. Your players will decide which NPCs matter, not you. That dashing noble with the tragic backstory, the meticulously crafted rogue with a dark secret, or the wise wizard you spent hours fleshing out. They'll ignore them completely. But the shopkeeper you threw in at last second because you forgot to prep the market? Oh, they'll adopt him. They'll name him Steve. And suddenly, you're not just improvising what Steve sells, you're inventing his life story, his personality, his hopes and dreams, and possibly his favourite flavour of pie. And then there was the Rock. Yes, the Rock. Let me tell you about the time a rock became the most memorable character in a one-shot. The party's quest was to retrieve a magical stone and return it to a temple to stop something terrible from happening. Straightforward, right? Well, one of my players decided to make things interesting. Their character had the ability to speak to dirt and stone. Naturally, they decided to strike up a conversation with the magical rock. Now, this is where it gets fun. The rock didn't have much to say. It's a rock, after all. It spoke in single-word responses. When asked for its purpose, it would reply with cryptic words like stay or wait. When they finally reached the temple, the player asked what it thought, and its response was simply, home. You'd think that would be the end of it, but no. The player decided the rock deserved a full tour of the temple, as if it could see. They walked it to every corner, pointing out the intricate carvings, the sacred artifacts, and even the broom closet. The rest of the party looked on in stunned amusement as this character proudly presented the temple to a completely inanimate object, narrating every detail with the enthusiasm of a real estate agent showing off a luxury home. What started as a simple quest item turned into a roleplay highlight. The rock didn't even have a name. It was just the rock. But it became an integral part of that one-shot story. This is why you need to be prepared for the unexpected. Even the most mundane, functional element of your game can become something your players latch onto. Give it a quirk, even a small one, and watch what happens. In this case, the quirk was the rock's single-word responses, which were simple enough to roleplay, but mysterious enough to spark the players' imaginations. Moments like this aren't interruptions. They're opportunities. They show you what your players care about and give them freedom to explore the world in ways you might never have planned for. So next time your players decide to bond with an object, lean into it. Give it a personality and see where the story takes you. Who knows? The rock might just steal the show. Now comes the fun part. Personality. This is where you breathe the life into your NPCs, turning them from a list of stats into characters your players will want to interact with again and again. Let's take Titt the Kobold Bard as an example. Titt wouldn't be Titt without his quirks. First, there's his way of speaking. Thanks to my, let's call them, unique voice acting abilities, Titt speaks in broken common. He often refers to himself in the third person. For instance, Titt likes to dig holes. Titt will play a song for you. It's simple, but it immediately gives him a distinct voice and makes makes every interaction feel special. But here's the twist. When Titt speaks in Draconic, everything changes. Suddenly he becomes eloquent, poetic, even profound. It's as if a master bard takes over his body, and his words flow with a kind of grandeur that completely baffles the party. The first time my players heard it, they were floored. They spent the next 20 minutes trying to get him to speak Draconic again, turning what could have been a simple interaction into one of the most memorable parts of the session. Quirks like these don't need to be elaborate to have an impact. Sometimes the smallest detail can make an NPC unforgettable. Maybe they have an unusual laugh, a deep belly laugh that doesn't match their frail appearance, or a high-pitched giggle that erupts at the most inappropriate times. Maybe they're constantly fiddling with something, like a coin they flip through their fingers, or a strand of beads they weave into intricate patterns. These quirks can also reflect the character's backstory or role in the world. A nervous apprentice mage might stammer when they speak, and accidentally spark a minor magical effect, like floating sparks or a sneeze that conjures a small gust of wind. A grizzled war veteran might have a habit of chewing on a toothpick and calling everyone kid, regardless of their age. The beauty of quirks is that they can make even the most minor NPCs feel alive. Imagine a street vendor who always hums a tune while serving customers until the tune abruptly changes when danger is nearby, acting as a subtle warning system. Or a librarian who refuses to speak above a whisper and communicates using an elaborate system of gestures, adding a layer of intrigue to every conversation. Personality isn't just about quirks, though. It's about how the NPC reacts to the players and the world around them. Are they friendly and open, or do they guard their words carefully? Do they speak in riddles, or are they blunt to the point of rudeness? Do they see the players as allies, nuisances, or something in between? Consider how these traits play into the larger story. A tavern keeper with a sarcastic streak might become a beloved ally, while an overzealous town guard who insists on checking the party's papers every time they enter might become a comedic rival. These interactions build relationships that make the world feel vibrant and connected. And don't forget, personality and quirks can evolve over time. As the players interact with an NPC, you can reveal new facets of their character. Maybe the grumpy shopkeeper softens after the players bring them a rare item, or the seemingly cheerful farmer confesses their fears over the coming winter. These moments of depth and vulnerability turn NPCs into more than just side characters. They become part of the story's heart. So, when you're creating your next NPC, think about the little things that will make them stand out. Doesn't have to be big. A quirky habit, a unique way of speaking, or an unexpected reaction can be enough to turn them into a character your players will never forget. And remember, you don't have to get it perfect on the first try. Sometimes the best quirks and traits emerge during gameplay. Just give them a spark of personality and let the story do the rest. Great NPCs don't stay static. The best ones grow, change, and react to players' actions, becoming as dynamic and alive as the world around them. This growth doesn't need to be elaborate or planned out in advance. It often happens organically, shaped by the unexpected ways your players interact with the character. Let's go back to Titt, for example. He began as a joke, a throwaway character in a one-shot I played. A terrible bard with questionable skills and an affinity for banging on things. He was meant to provide a few laughs and move the story along, but something magical happened when my players met Titt. They adored him. They leaned into his quirks, asked him questions, treated him like a genuine part of the world. And as they did, Titt started to evolve. His passion for gardening, born from his failed attempts at grave digging, became a running gag. The party would tease him about his inability to dig a straight hole, but they also supported him, encouraging his new love for plants. This grew into a defining trait, and soon Titt wasn't just the terrible bard, he was Titt, the green-thumbed kobold with a heart of gold and a knack for making anything bloom. The players became so invested in Titt's growth that they started bringing him flowers to plant. It wasn't part of the quest. There was no mechanical reward for doing so, but they loved the idea of adding to Titt's garden, and in doing so, they deepened their connection to the world. These small, heartfelt moments are why NPCs are such a joy to create. But Titt's growth didn't stop there. As the party's relationship with him evolved, so did his personality. He began to display a quiet resilience, still clumsy, still absurd, but with a determination to prove himself. He'd offer the players gardening advice, help them patch wounds with herbal remedies, and occasionally try, and fail, to play a victory tune on his shovel. His charm became infectious, even winning over the grumpiest party members who had initially dismissed him as a joke. Titt wasn't just reacting to the players, he was becoming part of their story. And that's the magic of letting NPCs grow. When an NPC evolves in response to the player's actions, it creates a sense of connection and impact. The players feel like their choices matter because they can see how it influenced the world. Letting NPCs grow also adds layers of depth to your campaign. Maybe the shy librarian the players befriended at the start of the adventure blossoms into a confident leader by the end, thanks to their encouragement. Or the villain they face shows signs of doubt or regret as the party confronts them with the consequences of their actions. Growth doesn't always have to be positive. It just needs to be meaningful. So when you're creating NPCs, don't be afraid to let them change. Watch how your players interact with them, and use these moments to shape the character's journey. Whether it's a small, silly detail like Titt's garden, or a profound transformation, and growth is what makes NPCs feel real. It's what turns them from a throwaway joke into a beloved part of your campaign story, and maybe even its heart. So to make unforgettable NPCs, start with a hook, something quirky or unexpected. Be prepared for players to latch on to the most random characters or rocks. Give them a goal that makes them feel alive. Add personality and quirks to make them stand out. Let them grow and evolve through interactions with the party. NPCs like Titt the Kobold Bard reminds us that the best characters often come from unexpected moments. These moments of improvisation and chaos are what makes D&D magical. And speaking of magic, next episode we'll be exploring the art of failure. How to turn rolling a nat 1 into a moment of flair, and even use those failures to create character-defining traits. Because sometimes the best stories comes from what goes wrong. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own favorite NPC story Or maybe you had your own rock encounters. Put them down below in the comments. And if you want even more tools to make your games unforgettable, join the Kobold Guild on Patreon. You'll get access to monthly one-shots, adventures, unique monsters, and more to inspire your tabletop fun. Until next time, may your dice roll true, your NPCs charm the table, and your stories leave everyone laughing, crying, or maybe both. Stay clever, my friends.